Deborah really liked the yawn intro last time.
It was quite a good intro, I thought. It was something a bit different.
Speaking of intros, this is the introduction to today's podcast.
You're doing well. It was a good segue.
Thank you. We said this earlier, but I was speaking too quietly, apparently, so I'm going to repeat exactly what I said before.
Do.
And I'm going to repeat it as if I haven't already said it.
Well, because repetition is the core of, live conversation.
Exactly.
Everyone just likes repetition.
They do.
Which is, I like how we segued into our introduction.
Yeah, that was... Wow.
We're segueing before we even begin. Yeah.
It's a whole nother level here today. Yeah. So I was just saying, it's a wonderful evening here. Here in Hawke's Bay. I hope it's nice wherever you are.
Yeah.
We've actually just had a swim in the pool, and it was absolutely wonderful.
It is.
We wish we were still there, but live mics and water don't mix very well, so I am told.
No.
So
the only problem you see with having a swim on like a hot day like this is that you come out afterwards and you just feel so relaxed.
we have no fight left in us.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out in a minute. We'll find out in a minute.
We're tackling some pretty important topics today.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be... I think initially a struggle to get into it, but once we... once we start reading...
You're really selling it, Ange. You're really selling it for people.
I'm a good hype man. Flavor Flav. My clock.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been meaning to ask you about the clock around your neck.
Yeah, a good wrestling.
Yeah, I thought it was to keep us on time.
Yeah,
but apparently it's just a fashion choice.
It is. It's just a fashion choice. So, what do we talk us through what we're doing today, James? What are we doing today?
Well, we're gonna have a bit of a conversation about some things that have come up earlier on in this week about an article that I sent through to Anthony, and Anthony's now received this article multiple times because I believe producer Caroline sent it through to you as well. I was scrolling through my Facebook feed.
That's the first mistake you made.
That was the first mistake I made, and I came across this article, and it's on a website called thetransformedwife.com. So
no relation to the Transformer franchise. No.
Yes, that's right. They're advocating, men prefer women who can transform into robots. Yeah,
that would be pretty cool.
On second thoughts,
I actually, So it's all right. Sorry, before I rudely interrupt.
No, that's right. So this article, it popped up with a picture, you see, and the bottom of the picture was the title of the article, and the title of the article is "Men Prefer Debt-Free Virgins Without Tattoos," and I thought this is gonna be a good read. Now, originally I thought that this might be like, on a site like, Waterford Whispers or The Onion or something like that, where it was going to be, somebody
some sort of satire.
Some sort of satire around this sort of stuff. And so I thought, I'll give this a read. Being a man and,
You wanted to fact check.
I sort of wanted to know why I preferred debt-free virgins without tattoos. So I read through this and actually, I joke a little bit, but the more I read through this and as I discovered that this article was actually serious, I actually found it really disturbing. It's incredibly disturbing. So I'm just going to read you the first little bit from this article. This is by a lady. I'd like to put that out there. This is by a lady called Laurie Alexander. So, here's the opening of this article, just to put this in context for you. Do you know how much more attractive debt-free virgins, in brackets, without tattoos, are to young men? Unfortunately, there are so few of these types of young women anymore because of the high costs of college, in brackets, debt, and sexual promiscuity, even from those within the church. As believers in Jesus Christ, we need to live in a way that is pleasing to the Lord because his ways are the best. He calls debt a burden and urges us to live the lives of sexual purity. There are many reasons why Christian young women should carefully consider whether or not they go to college, especially if they want to be wives and mothers someday. Secular universities teach against the God of the Bible and his ways. It is far from what God calls women to be and do. It teaches them to be independent, loud, sexually available, and immodest, instead of having meek and quiet spirits. This is amazing. I love, for example, that in here,
Meek.
yeah, so you could be meek and quiet and spirited, yeah. But what I get, okay, like I could sit there and go, I could maybe understand a little bit more. I'm reaching here, but I could maybe understand a little bit more if they turned around and they were said, look, maybe there are some qualities that this lady who wrote this finds difficult in young women. Maybe that they're brash and that sort of thing, which I would understand. I guess that's kind of what she's trying to get at with loud. But I sort of sit there and I go, it teaches them to be independent.
Yeah.
Because that's a bad thing.
That's right.
We don't want independent young women.
We don't want free thinkers.
No, God knows what they'll do.
She should go She should go and transport herself back to Mao's China. Or
well, next they'll want to vote or something. And then we can't have any of that rubbish.
No. Or drive cars.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Should love Saudi Arabia. Although no woman can drive there now. Step backwards if you ask me. Obviously, that was a joke. A joke referencing how ridiculous. Can you read the first sentence again?
The first sentence.
Because it said there was something there.
Do you know how much more attractive debt-free virgins without tattoos?
That's it. In brackets, without tattoos.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Where does that? How does that sort of lump in there?
Well, okay. So I'm going to use my kind of relatively basic knowledge of the Jewish tradition here, not being Jewish myself, and I'd like to apologize if I have this wrong. But I'm under the belief that in the Jewish religion, for example, they don't like tattoos. Okay. So marking your body and things like that, I believe it's somewhere in the Old Testament, marking your body is considered to be sinful. Or willfully, I think it comes under willfully damaging your body, I think. But I know that, or at least as far as I'm aware, there's a thing that if you have tattoos and you're an Orthodox Jew, you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery, for example. So they're quite serious about that. So this is what I'm assuming the tattoo thing comes from. Yeah, I'm assuming this is why we young men prefer women without tattoos.
I just find it interesting that it's debt, virgins, tattoos. Like a train spotting poster. I don't know, it's really strange. Why tattoos sort of managed to sneak in there.
But okay, so here's the thing, right? What I love about this is that there's an interesting argument being made here, because as the article goes on, what they're actually going on about is how much they dislike the idea of young women being educated at university.
Absolutely.
Right? So this is the whole focus of the debt thing. It's not, young men prefer women without credit cards.
Who haven't bought a boat or something.
Yeah. It's specifically don't go to college because, it's a waste of time and it's going to rack up debt. So I want to read one little more bit about the college thing, because this is really the thrust of the article, right? Yeah. It goes in here. Now, here it is. And again, I'm quoting from the article. If they go to college, that's women, they are unlikely to stay home raising their children to pay off the debt and use the degree they spent years on. I have seen this in many young women's lives, sadly. Strangers raising their precious children while they struggle to pay off their debt by having a job away from home. The husband will need to take years teaching his wife the correct way to act, think, and live, since college taught them every possible way that is wrong.
Oh my God.
It gets better. Unfortunately, Most young Christian women won't listen to their husbands, since they've not been taught to live in submission to them, nor have they ever heard of this voice about being quiet in church. And if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home. 1 Corinthians 14:35. However, the older women who are called to teach the young women biblical womanhood, Titus 2:3-5, and most husbands have never seen it modelled in their lives, so they wouldn't know what to teach. They will start having babies later in life, that is, if they can still conceive naturally. Is college worth having fewer children? I will never understand how women prefer careers over having warm, cuddly babies. Never take your fertility for granted, young women. Children are gifts from the Lord that keep on giving. There you go.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Are
you sure it's not an ad calling out for the hiring for the cast of season 3 of The Handmaid's Tale?
Oh, I just...
Wow.
This blows my mind. Okay, so this blows my mind too. And what I find worrying about this, so obviously this article triggered me quite a lot this week. Now I grew up Catholic, so and practicing Catholic, all those sorts of things. So I understand growing up in a very Christian household and those kinds of things. I just love that all Christians in there get lumped together. That this is what young Christians want in their wives, is submissive and obedient women, and that you shouldn't go to college because they teach you things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to kink shame, but not everyone wants that. I also in the whole, I've met some young girls who have gone to college and become educated, and now are struggling to pay that off while they have kids. Who are these people? I mean, but she's now more educated, therefore, in theory, has a higher paying job.
Yeah.
So,
but like, let's even take, okay, yes, college debt is a thing, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously written in the United States, so we're talking about college debt, but we're here university debt. It's a real thing, and people spend a lot of time paying off that debt. Absolutely. But how many of these women have jobs away from home? Unless they're talking about, actually having to leave the house, which clearly in this particular scenario is undesirable. Women leaving the house is generally undesirable. We want women who are meek and mild. Like, one bit that sort of triggers me about this whole thing, right, is it disturbs me, again, I guess it disturbs me even greater that this was written by a woman.
Yeah.
So that I find
in 2018.
In 2018.
Yeah.
I find that disturbing. I find that disturbing that there is still that kind of attitude towards, dominant husbands telling and educating their wives, women not having a say or shouldn't have a say, in some way having a say within their household or a say over their lives makes them unchristian. That really disturbs me.
Her purpose in life is to have children.
Yeah.
As well. So it's, you get no choice in that.
And lots of children. You should be having... Why would you want a career over having a warm and cuddly baby at home?
It's bizarre. I mean, putting religion aside, which I guess for this is probably a bit of a... But I mean, why? I mean, why does she want people to have children? Why does it affect her?
I don't know. But the other thing is that, like, obviously religion is so tied up in this, right? And
it is. You can't really separate them from
this blackmailing, and this is going to sort of be the sort of theme of our podcast today is women being blackmailed, and especially mothers being blackmailed. And so this article, states a religious point of view that says that, in order to be a good mother, you can't be educated. You can't have an education. You can't be independent. You can't be independent of your husband or independent, have your own job or, state an opinion. Which I think is, my God, I think that's a horrific message to be advocating.
Absolutely.
I think it's a horrific message for young women. I think it's a horrific message for young men as well. That here you have somebody who is justifying a terrible opinion. Turning around and saying, no, as a man, you should be expecting your wife to not be educated, to stay at home, to listen to what you have to say, to obey you in all things, all that sort of stuff. I hate this kind of emotional blackmail that gets used. This idea that you can either have a career or you can have babies.
Yeah, pick one.
God gone hate you if you decide to have a career.
Further yourself and become independent.
Yeah. I think it's a truly damaging opinion.
But, I mean, really the crux of this it comes down to the fact that when you become educated, you tend to pull away from these kind of things. That's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yep.
So becoming educated is a threat to the ideologies that she's upholding.
Yeah. But I just like this slightly comes into like this idea of free speech, right? You should be able to write whatever you want or whatever. No, you shouldn't. No, you absolutely shouldn't. I honestly, this sounds horrific. I don't think people should get away with saying rubbish like that.
I don't think they do. I think they get pulled up on it. That's the other big problem. I think we might have talked about this before, but with free speech, it doesn't give you freedom of criticism.
No, but I look in the comments in this, right? Not the comments where this was reposted to Facebook, because obviously this was posted to Facebook with people going, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
But the comments on this for people who read this were all supportive of this idea, all supportive of this point of view, and how this, how women have moved away from this and become far too independent.
Crazies congregate, James. They congregate. They find little bubbles on the internet and they congregate.
But I'm sorry, you should not be allowed to. You should not be allowed to spout this absolute rubbish. You shouldn't be allowed to do it. Like, it is harmful. It is actively harmful.
But how would you go about policing that or enforcing
just say, no,
that?
can't. Sorry.
No, but
it's being removed. Your post is being removed from Facebook. It's
but
actively
who would remove
harmful.
It? Facebook?
Me. I'm the advocate of what's right. Look. I know. Look, I know there are all sorts of issues around free speech and things like that in terms of who gets to decide what gets discussed.
It's probably a podcast for another day.
Who gets to decide that? But it disturbs me. What also disturbs me is the use of the Bible. Right? Is this kind of authoritative text that's we should never deviate from this. We must live by the rules of the Bible. We must do all of that. Blah, 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 blah. It's absolute bollocks. Yeah. Like, for example, I would like to know this incredibly Christian woman who's throwing Corinthians out there and Titus out there and all this sort of stuff and sitting there and saying this is how you should live your life. I'd like to find out whether she wears blended fabric. Because that's a big no-no according to Leviticus. Eat seafood. Big no. Like any kind of women speaking out, that sort of stuff, they should be stoned to death. Like, is she an advocate of this? She's going to take people out there and say that's what the Bible says. If you want to sit there and say, what do you call it? We should live our lives by the Bible. Then you've got to accept all of it. You're either all in or you're not, right?
You're just misinterpreting it, James.
No, it's there in black and white, mate. So you're either all in or you're not. So you're either like, I'm going to use this as an argument that we should be doing this because it's in the Bible, right? Then if you're gonna do that, you've got to do everything.
Yeah.
Because that's your fundamental argument. If it's in the Bible, it's right. You can't pick and choose. You can't turn around and go, oh, well, this agrees with my point of view, so therefore I'm going to say that this is right. Unless you turn around and say that. Unless you turn around and say, hey, look, I agree with this particular part of what it says, but you can't say, your argument cannot be, oh, it's in the Bible, that means it's right. Because then you have to you have to take everything else.
I think one of the worst things about this as well is that in the past, I probably would have just thought, this person's probably a professional troll, which, is quite common. You do get that on social media and things. You get professional trolls. However, now, I don't know that that's the case here. I think this person actually, like, can you click on it?
No. This woman is legitimately serious. This is not a troll at all. Wow. The wonderful. I think this is amazing. If you go to the bit at the bottom that says, next article, previous article, that sort of stuff. The next article if God loves me, why am I suffering? And the previous article is stop enticing men! !
Stop enticing men.
Yeah. So
wow.
This is the thing. I think this sort of thing is incredibly damaging. What I'd like to see is everybody jumped onto the transformedwife.com. Find these articles, and I'd like you all to let Laurie know what you think of her opinion of of women. How dare they get educated rather than raising cute, cuddly babies at home?
Bizarre way of describing babies. Then they're a lot of work. They're not.
So I feel like we should. I feel like we should rank this, right? Okay, seeing as we're both young men. So in the interests of fairness and objectivity. I'd like to know, Anthony.
Yeah.
On the only scale that matters. I'd quite like to know, being a young man, would you prefer a debt-free virgin without tattoos? 0 being that's not important to me at all. 10 being like it's the only woman I'll ever date.
Have to be careful. No, I don't even have to be careful. 0, probably negative.
Yeah, can we have a negative?
I think I'd certainly be a quite the hypocrite. Anything but a 0, to be honest. No, really a 0. Not just because that isn't even remotely. It's actually borderline. Not borderline. It is offensive. But because no, that's actually that's incredibly unappealing to me. What that tells me is that this person has lived a sheltered life, and without going to it, but has lived a sheltered life.
Yeah,
and is probably really boring. That sounds like a boring woman to me. Really boring. It does.
Watch this space for the follow-up.
No, but it does. She just sounds boring.
Yeah.
And really misogynistic.
Yeah.
And
but why is an educated woman such a threat?
Because they have agency and they can argue with you and don't put up with your shit.
Yeah.
They call you out on things.
So for me, obviously, this is a 0, right? Because I think that the mind is one of the most attractive things in another person. Yeah, somebody with a good mind. Yeah, and look, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have been educated through university or whatever else like that. But grow that mind, because minds are incredibly attractive. People who are interested in stuff is interesting. Yeah. People
who are passionate.
Who want to expand their horizons and things like that. So, no, I wouldn't prefer a debt-free virgin without tattoos.
It's very Stepford Wives, isn't it? It's very Stepford Wives.
Will you fit our community?
It's gross, eh?
So,
what about you, James? Oh no, you've said 0.
No, I've said 0. Absolutely,
so even if you combine our scores, it's a 0.
It's still a 0. 0. It's just not.
What about you, Producer Caroline?
Would you prefer a woman who's different, has no tattoos?
A 0.
That's a 0 from Producer Caroline as well.
You combine all of our scores, it's still a 0.
It's still a grand total of 0.
0.
Yeah. So I just sort of wanted to talk a little bit about that, and not that. That's look. We'll save a discussion on my thoughts on religion until another day. But I just
Do you think it's a good thing, though? Do you think this is a good thing because it's actually caused people to... I mean, I've seen on Facebook, people just have been coming out in droves. I think a lot of people find it funny. And I think that's actually a little bit reassuring. People find it really funny. This idea, it's a joke to most people, which I think is really great. I think it, in a way, does show a lot of progression in society. That, you know, if this had come out maybe even 30 years ago, 20 years ago, the reaction might have been a little bit different. Maybe a little bit more balanced, because you would have had, you know... and if it had come out in the 50s, well, people would be saying, well, of course. Stating the obvious, you know.
I know, and look, and I'm glad things have progressed, and I'm glad things, you know, are changing. In that balance. I'm a great advocate for that. It just riles me. Like it really does. It riles me. When this kind of damaging language or damaging speech is used, and it riles me that the target audience for this. The target audience for this are people who are emotionally vulnerable. And potentially a little bit intellectually vulnerable. Like the bit that gets me is it's this kind of emotional blackmail that's used. You're not a good mother if you want to have a career. You're not a good Christian if you want to educate yourself. You're not a good person. You're not a moral person if you don't live in subservience to your husband. Those kind of those are strong emotional blackmails. Like they are strong for anybody. Like, that idea, you're not a good parent unless you do this. That's a strong emotional blackmail.
So this is a reoccurring theme then, because I noticed you mentioned emotionally vulnerable. That's a very important point, and you're seeing this all over the internet at the moment. Very good example of that that we've had, of course, is things like the Donald Trump community on Reddit. Again, emotionally vulnerable, young, angry men. It's
the incel community.
The red pill. And it is, isn't it? It's a hive for people who are angry, isolated, and they find like-minded people who also are very angry. I can relate to this person. Let's bond over our, and then you end up with this cesspool of hate and anger. And it's also how a lot of it's the oldest trick in the book, isn't it? It happens with cults, Jehovah's Witnesses, all those kind of places. Notice I said cults and Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
Probably didn't need to do that. No. Probably could have just said cults. Please don't assassinate me. The elders, don't assassinate me.
They're not coming.
And by the way, I make no apologies for that comment. If you're offended, then I don't care.
Fair enough. I think we're potentially going to have to do a whole podcast on our feelings on that sort of thing. I think that, but again, coming back to that blackmailing of emotionally vulnerable people, and here comes one of our world famous segues here, because this is the topic that this made me think of and really triggered me. Is this idea of emotional blackmail or intellectual blackmail that's used? Anti-vax. This is. I know. Our last week's podcast topic was things that trigger us, but this is probably the biggest trigger for both Anthony and I.
This is the holy grail of triggers. I think.
It is. It really is. But this is another example of emotional and intellectual blackmail. Emotional and intellectual blackmail. You're a poor parent if you're vaccinating your child. Why would you do this? You're being a sucker for.
Well, but it's also
big pharma.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's always very emotive language. Like, for example, I mean, it's the language used. So, it's not. There might be a small risk of. It's, would you risk doing this to your child? Would you risk hurting your child? Hurting your child.
You are actively hurting your child.
Yeah. And that's got no basis in scientific fact.
No.
That's a mode of language.
Yep.
It's propaganda.
Yep.
And it is proven propaganda.
Yep.
So you can stick your fingers in your ears and yell as much as you like, but these have been debunked.
Yep. But the thing that gets me about that, I suppose a lot about the anti-vax thing, a little bit like the men prefer women article, is that the people that suffer from this are people who, to a certain extent, don't have any choice. Or don't have any agency. So people that suffer, by, and again, I look, and I'm going to come straight out and say it. I think if you don't vaccinate your child, you're a criminal. I think it's criminal negligence towards your child. We rely on herd immunization.
Yeah.
Kids who cannot be vaccinated, who cannot because, they have a negative reaction to those kinds of things or whatever, rely on herd immunization to keep them safe from these sorts of things. So, the people who suffer are kids. They're kids who don't have a choice in this, who are not, to a certain extent, intellectually equipped to have a realistic argument or idea about this, but they're the ones that suffer. And the reason this came to me as well was because I saw, again, I tell you, Facebook's been full of interesting stuff this week. Was because this again came up on Facebook not long after this article came up on Facebook that an anti-vax community in Auckland has just had the biggest outbreak of chicken pox in 100 years. So because they're not vaccinating their children.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. We are seeing the return of diseases that we eradicated because Muppets refused to vaccinate their children.
Is this also an incredible entitlement as well? I mean, because these people didn't live through, the
Polio,
40s, 50s, 60s, when family members were literally dragged out of their homes because of having things like polio. And so can we all just remember that this all started because in 1998, Andrew Wakefield posted a paper that was about MMR, so measles, mumps, rubella.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was complete rubbish. It was absolute complete rubbish. And it turned out later that there was all sorts of shady business going around this guy. He had money in Big Pharma. He had money in and it was all proven to be unequivocally false. And can we just remember, I've actually there's a really good article on sciencemag.org. Science. You'll notice it's called sciencemag.org, not emotive responses to things that I just have a crazy gut feeling about that I'm going to spout as fact.org. So it's sort of a fact checking on the vaccine myths. And so in 1998, UK doctor Andrew Wakefield published a study in The Lancet suggesting that the measles, mumps and rubella, MMR, you may have heard it referred to, vaccine could trigger autism. In the years after, MMR vaccination rates among 2-year-olds in England dropped below 80%. But the claim began to unravel in 2004 after journalist Brian Deere reported undisclosed conflicts of interest. Wakefield had applied for a patent on his own measles vaccine and had received money from a lawyer trying to sue companies making the MMR vaccine, citing further concerns about ethics and misrepresentation. The Lancet retracted the paper in 2010. Shortly after, the United Kingdom's General Medical Council permanently pulled Wakefield's medical licence. And good riddance.
Yeah.
So, and just another thing as well. So, another thing that gave this a sort of that breathed a new life into this awful thing was same person, Wakefield, directed a film in 2016 called Vaxxed. And it alleges a cover-up by the Centres for Disease Control and Prevention, and it features a bioengineer, Brian Hooker, who took issue with a 2004 CDC study that found no overall difference in vaccination rates between kids with and without autism. Hooker reanalyzed the data in 2014 and claimed CDC had hidden evidence that the vaccine could increase autism risk in black boys. In fact, CDC noted in the paper that rates of vaccination in the oldest age group were slightly higher in kids with autism, but CDC says that this effect was most likely a result of immunisation requirements for preschool special education program attendance in children with autism. So such claims promote... It's exhausting reading this. And knowing that people who spew this anti-vax stuff either know about this and refuse to believe it. It's the mental gymnastics, isn't it? So you can claim, it doesn't matter what you say.
Yep.
There will, but because these are the same people that voted for Trump. It's the same. It's the same thought process. It's in your gut.
Yeah,
it's in your gut.
I just have this gut feeling about it. But it's also absolutely, again, it's absolute. It's absolute bollocks that gets spouted, right? So it's a growing trend that, and it's a trend that worries me. It's a growing trend of anti-intellectuals. Yeah. It's a growing trend of distrusting people who are educated. It's a growing trend of trying to demonize intellectuals. It sort of harks back, what makes me laugh about this is it harks back a little bit to one of our earlier podcasts where we were talking about conspiracy theories and that sort of stuff. And I said to you that what I've always loved about a good conspiracy theory is it ultimately comes back to this government agency, this police force, this whatever, this shady organization or whatever, pharma. Is hiding stuff from us because like they have this reason, they have this reason to want to hide this from us. Why? Don't know. It's just that they do. And again, how does the CDC, how do these people benefit from hiding this?
I think
people?
The most frustrating thing about it as well is that things like Big Pharma, they already do shady things that we should have a problem with.
Yep.
With price fixing of drugs to price people out of the market and exploiting.
Over prescription of antibiotics, over prescription of...
There's plenty there that's...
over prescription of antidepressants, those kinds of things.
There's plenty already there that we should be angry about. So now whenever, you hear someone saying, Big Pharma, like da-da-da, the first thing you think is, this person's a crazy conspiracy theory person. Yep. You discredit people who are actually trying to push an agenda that actually has some meaning.
But here's the other thing, right? What cracks me up is one argument that I've always heard. One argument I've always heard for vaccination, right? Anti-vaccination, is people saying, well, you can't tell me what's in it, so therefore, why would I put it in my child? Motherfucker, you tell me what's in a Twinkie bar. If you can sit there and literally list to me everything that's in there and what quantities and how it affects the person, then no, don't eat any food unless you can tell me exactly what's in there.
Tell me the materials that make up your car.
Yeah. So
tell me actually. Okay. Yeah. If we're going to use that argument, you're not allowed to drive your car until you know exactly how that thing works. You can walk me through everything.
Yeah.
Because you're driving a death machine.
Yeah, that's right. So it's like there was a wonderful sort of meme thing that was going around Facebook again a while ago. God, I sound like I spent all this time on Facebook a while ago that said had a picture of sodas, right? Like Coke and that sort of stuff. And then said, had a picture of a child at the bottom. It said, you wouldn't feed these to your plants. So, why would you feed it to your child, right? And so me being the troll that I am, commented underneath this saying, well, I literally feed shit to my plants. Should I feed that to my children? If that is the basis of what you're saying, you're saying anything that's healthy for a plant, it's healthy for your child. I'm going to start feeding a child fertilizer.
You need your child you need your child to go through photosynthesis.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I mean, but this is the kind of level of argument that's used. Is you wouldn't feed this to your plant. It's the same thing as they go, oh well. vaccines contain chemicals that on their own are like poisonous to people. Yes, so does salt. Like, like if you took individual elements of salt and separated them and fed them to people, they'd kill people. Like, but by the very, fact that they are together in those quantities make them safe for human consumption. You can use that about any argument. Yeah, you can say about anything that you eat or anything that you do. Well, if I broke this down into its component chemicals, like with butter and stuff. And if I broke this down into its component chemicals and fed it to you, you would die. Yes, yes, I would. Like, but for some reason, this is the argument that's used against vaccines. Because they turn around and go, well, individual things in there are harmful to you. Yes.
Yeah.
But well, if you vaccinate your child, they might get autistic. No, that's not what causes autism. Do you know what my child will get if I don't vaccinate them? Dead. That's what my child will get if I don't vaccinate them.
It's also
in probably horrific and very painful ways. So anybody who does not vaccinate their child through willingly and knowingly does not vaccinate their child, they should be arrested and locked up because they are a criminal. They are being criminally negligent towards their children. And I know that there are people who listen to this podcast. I know there are people, friends of mine, for example, who think that, there's something to this anti-vaccination argument. You are a criminal. I'm sorry, I make absolutely no apologies for it. Read the actual scientific evidence. Because you are putting your
pro-anti-vax.
Yeah, you are putting your child at risk, and not only are you putting your child at risk, you're putting other children at risk. If you I know it sounds incredibly harsh, but I sort of sit there and go, don't come crying to me if your child dies in 10 years from a completely preventable illness. Because you decided that you didn't want to vaccinate your child. We have kids here in New Zealand who are now suffering through, horrific outbreaks of really rampant chickenpox or mumps. Or, and people sit there and go, oh, well, chickenpox is not that bad. I had chickenpox. Yeah, okay. Or, mumps or measles or measles. We've had measles outbreaks, for God's sake, because people are not vaccinating their children. And so, we're going to go back to the 1800s, when people were dying of things that we could cure very easily today. We're going to go back to the 20th century where children were
due a revival.
We're inflicted with things like polio and that kind of thing because when they discovered a vaccine for polio, that was lauded as such a huge medical breakthrough.
I know people who have polio.
It just blows me away that we could see a return of these things, return of diseases that we had eradicated essentially from our new human population. We're now going to see them come back because people have been emotionally blackmailed into making poor decisions because they get fed this emotional rubbish, as you said before, emotive arguments about, oh, well, you don't know this. You're too dumb to understand this. So, you don't know this. You're going to be, you're a terrible person. You should believe us when we're telling you that Big Pharma's out to get you and, blah, 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 blah.
If you're anti-vax, go and visit someone who has polio. Look them in the eyes and tell them that you're not going to vaccinate your children.
So, but here's the other thing, right?
Can you do that?
So here's the other thing. If I'm Big Pharma, right, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, right, okay, I want to make a shit ton of money. Pharmaceutical companies don't actually make a hell of a lot of money off vaccines. Vaccines aren't where a lot of their money are. No. What do I want? Well, I want people to live as long as possible, right? I want people to live as long as possible, preferably have lots of different illnesses because then I can sell them pills and things like that to cure those illnesses. autism doesn't help me.
Can I just point out as well?
It doesn't help.
Can I just point out as well? This really bothers me. This really bothers me.
Yep.
How awful must people with autism feel every time you idiots go spouting about how much you don't want your kid to get autism?
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, as if autism's the end of the world. You know what the end of the world is? Your kid dying.
Yep.
I would rather have I'd rather have a child with autism and love that child and see them through the rest of their lives instead of a child dying from an illness that was easily preventable.
Well done.
So stuff you.
Nicely said.
You know, just...
Yeah. But it also is...
And also, autism develops from birth.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do... You don't grow autism.
You can't catch it.
You can't catch autism.
No. It's you know, it's also this strange anti-intelligista, opinion that, you know, anybody who's successful, or any of these companies that are successful, or any of these companies that do these things are big evil empires with you know, some evil mastermind sitting at the top of them, you know, sitting around boardrooms going, how can we,
big red flags
screw
behind them.
everybody, you know, like I mean, for God's sake, you know, you know, as Anthony said, you know, read a book, actually do some research. Okay, Anthony, so on the only scale that matters, 0 to 10, how much do you think vaccines cause autism?
Negative 100. It's impossible. You can't. It doesn't happen. Nothing works that way. No. And I almost feel annoyed that I'm having to dignify that with an answer.
Yep.
It's annoying.
Yep.
It's like just going through life having to justify things that are just the way they are. We live in a period of time where the internet is more accessible from everyone. Education is more accessible to anyone in the world than it has ever been.
Well, unless you're a young Christian woman.
Unless you're a young Christian woman. Debt-free version without tattoos.
Yes, that's right.
There is more information available to people now more than ever.
Yep.
And you waste your time on some stupid blog site that looks like it was made with HTML1 in 1995, uploaded to Netscape, and you think, this is a reliable source that don't even know how to format their friggin' websites properly, with no source, suspiciously no sources. All the sources they do link to are some other rubbish website, and they all go on a full circle jerk about anti-vaccination.
Yep.
For God's sake, stop. I hate that. I mean, we have a not a responsibility, but you have no excuse. No one has any excuse to be dumb about these things anymore.
No.
No one.
No.
Read a book.
So what I particularly love about this particular episode...
Negative 1,000.
Negative 1,000. What I particularly love about this episode of our podcast is that clearly we're coming up to Christmas. And as you can tell...
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, everyone!
Anthony and I are clearly in a very Christmassy mood.
Wait, do I have a bell in here?
Yeah.
Oh, this could be a bell.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. That sounds
Merry Christmas!
That sounds like... And like, what's really funny...
ASMR. No, what is it? ASMR?
Yes, ASMR.
I don't know why I struggle with that.
No, but this is... What's really funny is that actually kind of sounds like ice cubes in a glass.
It does,
and it's actually not ice cubes in a glass. It's a collection of rocks and things that you have in a glass weirdly on your...
These are the collective... These are actually... this is the collective brain matter of an anti-vaxxer in here.
So, what?
Just store brain matter in jars on my desk.
So what Anthony and I and producer Caroline have decided that we're going to do is over the next week we're actually going to try and record a number of podcasts for you so that you will continue to get your podcasts every week over Christmas and over the New Year holiday.
Things we do.
I know. So we sort of had to lance the venom a bit. So we had to get out of a bit of a venomous podcast so that over the next, whenever you're listening to your next few podcasts, you know, over just before Christmas and things like that, there'll be nice, cheery podcasts where Anthony and I will just be laughing and, having a good time.
Laughing while eating salad.
That's right, laughing while eating salad. The other really exciting thing is that producer Caroline has managed to sort out some visual recording equipment. So we're hopefully going to be able to provide you with at least a short little video before Christmas.
In Technicolor.
In Technicolor. Yeah.
Yep. Cinema vision.
Yes, that's right.
And widescreen format.
Coloured in what was the colouring? What was the colouring system that they used?
Technicolor.
It's Technicolor coming to you.
I just said that, James.
Did you?
You're not even listening to me.
No, I don't. I don't listen to you.
It's going to be like the Wizard of Oz. We'll start in sepia, and then as our budget increases, we'll then colour in the frames.
Yeah, that's right.
Go along.
By hand. All cell shaded.
And now there's a lot of frames now. You can get like up to you do like 60 frames a second.
Yeah, because you want to see us all in glorious 60 frames a second. And hopefully towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, we'll start our first streams as well.
Yeah.
Our first gaming streams. So Anthony and I are going to be looking at streaming some of our favourite games and that sort of thing. So if you have any games that you would like us to play, or you would like to see us stream, or you would like to see us go through, let us know. Obviously, we have a few favourites or a few things that we'd like to do.
Got some ambient noise in the background now.
It's all right.
It's fine.
It's all right. It's just the dog. But obviously, we have some games that we like and games that we'd like to play, or that we think would work well in terms of a good gaming stream. I think Amnesia would be a good one to do as a gaming stream or something like that.
Oh, well, there's that game Soma, that the same makers, which is actually PlayStation Plus free game.
It is this month.
Yeah.
So
we're very cheap here.
That's right. It's big budget, I tell you.
But we haven't played it because I
haven't played Soma. So I have it, but I haven't played it. So
that could be a good one.
Maybe our first playthrough will be a stream, and you can
that's a good idea.
Watch us freak out, play incredibly poorly, but. Look, hopefully you'll join us from some gaming streams, and we'll continue to get a podcast out to you every Monday. So don't forget to follow us and like us and subscribe and comment and ask questions and those sorts of things on all our social media. So you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all those places. On Instagram and Facebook, it's Esoterica Podcast. On Twitter, it's Esoterica Pod. And again, the more we hear from you and things like that, the more we'd like to add your stuff in to what we do or that sort of stuff. I'm sure you'll have some opinions on what we've talked about today.
Yeah, if you've got some opinions about what we've just talked about, the perfect Stepford wife, or
let us know,
or about the anti-vax movement.
Let us know if you would prefer a woman who's debt-free and has no tattoos. Let us know if that's your sort of thing. Let us know what games you'd like to see, if you think Soma's a great idea, or what other games you'd like to see Anthony and I play in our stream.
And let us know if you like being anti-vax and killing small children.
Yeah. Because then we can immediately block. No.
Actually, before you do that, read a book, then comment. That'd be great. I make no apologies for this.
No. I think it's important. I think it's important. As we said right at the beginning of this, these are our opinions, and these are reasonably strong opinions.
My
that
opinions
we have,
and reflect the views of Esoterica.
No.
And my work. No, of course not.
No. But absolutely, they are. They are opinions that we have. And look, if you have another opinion, you have another opinion. But I don't apologise anything.
Vax isn't an opinion, though. It's fact.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Scientific fact.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us here at Esoterica. Thank you for joining us on our podcast. We're going to work very hard, as I said, over the next week to record a few more to get out for you for Christmas. Join us for our special Christmas episode, which
we've put a lot of thought into it.
But keep yourselves safe. Look after yourselves.
Please.
Look after each other.
Yeah.
This time of year is always a time of year where, we worry about things like road tolls, where we worry about those things. So please look after yourselves. Look after each other. Be kind to yourselves. Be
Yeah.
kind to each other.
People are real stressed out at this time of year. It helps if people are nice to each other.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing your Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
Be nice to retail people, please.
There seems to be a reoccurring theme of our podcast.
It
Be
is.
nice to retail people.
It is.
But
it
seriously,
is,
be
though.
nice to retail
Yeah.
But-
Restaurant staff.
people. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, catch you later.